Hey guys, it's Sleepy Reader here with part 2 of my look at Marvel Now. Just my kind of take on, giving my take on things from all the Marvel books I've been reading lately, at least the ones that are billed as Marvel Now books. Last time I talked about Hulk and Captain America and Spider-Man, and this time I thought I'd mostly focus on the Avengers. This is harder for me to talk about. I haven't had such a positive feeling about this current Avengers. Despite high hopes before Marvel Now started. And it's a little hard for me to explain exactly how it all has gone wrong for me. But I've read some Uncanny Avengers, and I've been following New Avengers and the regular Avengers because I have my subscriptions to those, so I'm locked in. I also grabbed Avengers Assemble Annual, but I don't know if this has much to do with anything, even the Avengers Assemble. I am not reading a number of other Avengers things like Avengers Academy and Young Avengers. Young Avengers sounds good from what people have been saying about it, so I might check that out in trade. I'll start with Uncanny Avengers. Actually, of these 3 books, I probably like it the most, but I'm not really getting it regularly. I got the first issue because someone gave me the digital codes, a good friend here on YouTube, and then it seemed like I wasn't going to be getting it, so I was happy with that. I was just going to get it in trade. I liked it, but I didn't feel like a huge drive to get it now, to get it immediately. It looked to be kind of a fun story, but to me, nothing, it just didn't grab me in a huge way. The Red Skull is a bad guy that, I can take or leave. They obviously, Marvel looked at this as kind of a central cornerstone to the Marvel Now. It was the first one that came out, and it got a lot of hoopla. Rick Remender is a good writer. John Cassaday is a good artist. I do kind of wonder if John Cassaday is really right for straight-ahead superheroes, although he did a fine job on the X-Men with Joss Whedon. But where he really excels is something more out on the edges, I think, rather than at the center of comic books. I loved him on Planetary. But it's pleasurable to see his art here. Issue 2 is a little weaker art-wise than issue 1, and I think we won't be seeing him much longer. I understand he's going to, because he can't really handle a monthly book or, a more than monthly book, that they're going to move in some other artists. But Remender's the real star here, and as such, perhaps using him on this book makes a statement. Combining the Avengers and the X-Men makes a statement. These are our bread and butter, and we're going to make a book that's both, which is potentially interesting, but so far doesn't seem that interesting. They made Havoc the leader, but haven't, in the first 2 issues, developed him much as a character. The main character that they really have developed, other than the Red Skull, is Rogue, and she's been kind of interesting. The Red Skull is just evil as evil can be, and wants to treat mutants like he used to treat the Jews when he worked with Hitler. For reasons, I guess, just because the more hate you stir up, the more power you have. I think another maybe statement about using Rick Remender on what was supposed to be the core book is that he likes to push things to extremes, and he has kind of a horror science fiction take on a lot of things. He did a great job pushing the Uncanny X-Force to the extremes and doing a lot of wild science fiction and gross out stories there. And here the big gross out is all the brain surgery that the Red Skull likes to do, and there's a certain outrageousness to the Red Skull's schemes and plans. Um, but so far, I mean, I'll be interested to read where it goes. If I'm not paying a lot of money for it, so I probably will buy it in a cheap trade. A heavily discounted trade someday, unless I keep finding it in $1 bins. So I like it fine. I don't know. I don't. Other than the outrageousness of the Red Skull, I really don't have much to say about it. But I do think maybe Marvel wanted to make a statement with Rick Remender and his tendency towards outrageousness. But I could be wrong on that. And then, what really got me started getting excited when they first started making a lot of announcements about Marvel Now was Jonathan Hickman taking over the Central Avengers books, which was going to be Avengers and New Avengers. Which, it's unclear to me what the difference between those are at this point. At one point, the Avengers, a long time ago, were disassembled, and then they were reassembled as the New Avengers. But now you've got both. And I don't think these New Avengers have much to do with the New Avengers that Brian Michael Bendis created. I think these New Avengers have to do with the Illuminati that Brian Michael Bendis created. But anyway, I loved Hickman's Fantastic Four run and his FF, and I love his ongoing Manhattan projects. So I was really excited to see what he could do with the Avengers. Very first comic book I ever bought as a kid was the Avengers. And while in recent years I haven't had much interest in Avengers, I was still really curious what he would do with them. So it's quite surprising how uninterested I've been in both of these books so far. There's some beautiful art, particularly by Jerome Opeña, continuing in that, sophisticated art feel, that I've talked about before, the sense that in some ways a lot of Marvel books look like they could be, they could have fit in art-wise with the things like heavy metal in the past. Opeña's art is really cool. And hopefully he'll be coming back to this. He did the first 3 issues, and then I think the next 4 were done by Andy Kubert, who is good, but isn't as exciting as Opeña, at least for this particular book. Although I have no objection whatsoever to in Adam Kubert's work that he's done has been fine. So the art has been fine. The writing has been, to my mind, dull and overblown. He kind of writes it so that, if anyone remembers the Justice League Unlimited, and they had that wonderful opening theme song credit section where you just see all the superheroes in all these poses. And this book just seems to be full of superheroes posing, especially the first 3 issues. But we're here, we're the Avengers, there's lots of us. Our special plan for the Avengers? More Avengers. So it's kind of a huge a la Justice League Unlimited. It's just a huge parade of superheroes. But to what effect and to what point, I haven't been able to see yet. And it might be, because Hickman tends to have these long master plans, it might all sort itself out, and maybe I'll come back to the Avengers. But my subscription is about to run out, or has run out, and I didn't renew. I don't know if I'll be getting issue 7 or whether issue 6 is my last issue. And it's been interesting in the sense that after the initial 3-issue arc, he's been focusing on all these obscure heroes, some of which may or may not have been currently, previously active in the Marvel Universe, but exist in Marvel history, like Hyperion, who's kind of a Superman-like character from an alternate Earth, and Captain Universe, who I last remember from the 80s, when when he was a man, and obviously a completely different character, except for the fact that he embodies the power, or she now embodies the powers of the universe in some fashion. But the first arc just uses Captain Universe as a deus ex machina, solving all the problems, so that it really, Captain America's plan, or Captain America and Iron Man's plan of, let's have more heroes, large army of heroes to solve problems, was really all besides the point, since all it really took was Captain Universe. And so then, since then, we've kind of had these single issues that give us somewhat of the story or origin or part of that of several obscure heroes, but kind of linking up within the background of them trying to solve some other mysteries that rose up with the first arc, and somehow the sort of child of the godlike characters, or one of the godlike characters from the first arc, is now a bearer of a message of some cosmic horror to come, of crashing infinities and universes in collision and all of that, some white event, some big cosmic thing. So I guess that will eventually, hopefully, lead to us needing all of this huge army of heroes to stop the huge cosmic event. It all seems like it could be interesting. It also kind of reminds me not only of Justice League Unlimited, but of like the Legion of Superheroes. And all of those things have a kind of appeal. I think you have to sort of do them just right. And for me, because I know a lot of other people are enjoying this, for me, Hickman is doing it wrong. I'm bored half the time, and there'll be a few pages where it's really interesting, and then it will just go off in a direction that either seems boring or just off, where I don't care. In the Smasher issue, for instance, the Avengers come. She's just because she finds an outfit, she becomes a warrior for the Shire Empire, who I guess are supposed to be roughly good guys. I just remember them back in the X-Men days, and I guess they were allies at times. And anyway, they're an empire, and they have armies and they fight other empires, I guess, or other people out in space. So she just joins their empire because she found the suit, I guess. And then she gains favor with them when she calls in the Avengers to help in a big battle, where they, fight and destroy an army. Do the Avengers know which side is the right side to fight on? Are the Avengers, like mercenaries? Well, they come and fight because they're her friend. But so they're the friend of one soldier in an army, so they side with that army. Do the Avengers kill? Do they get involved in wars? I didn't think so. But if there's any question of the moral ambiguity of their behavior, and they seem not to question at all. You called, so we'll come and we'll fight. At the end of this issue, the Shire are shown as torturing to death one of their enemies to get information out of him. And the information they get out of him is that, in fact, they were not attacking the Shire. They were just trying to run away from some other unnamed horror that's coming through the universe. So the Avengers helped kill innocents without ever even asking questions, as far as I can tell for this. And as far as I can tell so far, Jonathan Hickman's not worrying about that very much either. So it leads me to think, what are the Avengers? What's their role? What's their goal? Are they protectors of Earth? Are they just sort of random fighters and killers of people who may or may not be bad guys? I don't think that's what the questions Hickman intends me to ask, but maybe he does. Um, but we've got this, so we get all kinds of hints about huge cosmic threats, and worlds are being destroyed, armies are being destroyed, and I don't care. And that's just one of my complaints. For me, there's just lots of plot holes. In the first arc, why the bad guys could so easily defeat the Avengers, and then they're so easily defeated later. It was all, too easy either way, and seemed just an excuse for a bunch of superheroes to get together and pose and then move on. So things for me get even worse with the new Avengers, which I also have seen some people liking quite a lot. But this is the Illuminati, and they are fighting or working on a problem of Earths from endless other universes colliding in with each other, I guess, if that's right. So we get the mass destruction of other Earths and protecting our own Earth. And there's some bigger problem coming, no doubt, even more cosmic stuff. And on top of that, we get the Illuminati, which is kind of this secret group of leader superheroes who make bigger decisions without telling anybody, which is already... It was an interesting thing when Brian Michael Bendis first did it, but it's already kind of distancing us from any idea that these people are heroes, or they it seems like it's emphasizing here the moral ambiguities, but without making me care. So instead, it just makes me feel like I don't feel like these people are heroes anymore. But I also don't care about the threats. They're just too big, and there's not enough context in here to make it personal. It's just about... It's almost like Cosmic Collision, Talking Heads, Cosmic Collision, Talking Heads, or something. I mean, I'm being overly cynical and mean about it, but ultimately that's my feeling. Ironically, I still have 7 more issues of this in my subscription, so I will be getting a lot more New Avengers. Maybe it will eventually win me over. I could barely get through this issue. When it got to this part, I tried to skim this conversation and couldn't really understand anything that was said there, and then I went back later and read it, but I still didn't care a whole lot. So, it could ultimately turn out to be an interesting view of, what it takes to make hard decisions and be leaders, and to, the immorality that you take upon yourself to protect a world or protect a country in the case of real world leaders. But it so far is not set up in a way that I really care or buy into. And the ultimate feeling for me at the moment is it just lessens all these heroes in my eyes. So that's sort of a theme here of the lessening of heroes for me, which also ties in maybe with some of my problems with Captain America, and to a lesser degree with Superior Spider-Man. Iron Man doesn't really have these same problems. It's more presenting Iron Man or Tony Stark as a moral figure in terms of trying to do what's right, but perhaps also emphasizing his playboy sexual, or his desire for sexual exploits. But what should have been fun, even with the bad Greg Land art, or the bad Greg Land faces, I have to say the rest of his art's pretty good, was terrible in the first arc. 1 or 2 issues of it were readable, and others were almost unreadable. I don't know what went wrong. I believe Kieran Gillen is a pretty good writer. I haven't read a lot of his stuff, but everything else I've read by him was, fairly good to very good. And I was looking forward to seeing what he would do with Iron Man, a new direction after such a long Matt Fraction run. but it was just the first arc, which I think was 5 issues, was just a total mess. So it was a huge relief when he heads off into space at the end of issue 5, even though it makes no sense to me that his armor, no matter how wonderful, can be the equivalent of the Starship Enterprise and go warp speeds essentially and take him anywhere in the galaxy or in the universe that he wants to go. I guess these are just really incredible warp speed engines there. If Stark has this kind of technology, it's just mind-boggling what he potentially could do. So it's kind of looking, with the second issue of this God Killer, this outer space arc, looking better and looking like a fun little romp. In the first issue, we were in some distant solar system, civilization, and Tony Stark's trying to pick up women. It was mildly amusing, if you discount the annoying faces on everyone. But there is sort of a certain heavy metal vibe, a certain kind of science fiction fantasy art to it beyond what once you would expect with superheroes. But it seemed based on just a little joke, the whole issue. So I didn't care too much. But somehow the kind of Captain Kirkness of it all began to click for me more in issue 7, the second issue of this God Killer outer space arc. And Tony Stark as Captain Kirk really began to gel for me, and I kind of let myself go and had some fun with it. I mean, because we even get eventually to this classic kind of Captain Kirk scene with Tony as a gladiator in an alien gladiatorial ring, having to do personal combat to prove that he is right, as a situation Captain Kirk might find himself in. But so it's kind of fun. But is it anything about Iron Man or about Tony Stark? It's just a romp out in space, which may or may not, there's one issue that I kind of enjoyed out of the 7 issues so far. Will it continue to get more enjoyable? I don't know. But it's almost like this Tony Stark in outer space isn't going to really count. I mean, in the other books, he's back on Earth. He's an active member of the Avengers. Kind of like Captain America is off in planet or Dimension Z, but in all the other books, he's in every Avengers book, and in many other books also, showing up as an Avenger to bug the X-Men or whatever. So, and when they do go off and do this science fiction kind of stories, as my cracks about his armor being able to travel in outer space, travel billions of light years in outer space in no time at all. There's just I have a sense that they don't take science fiction seriously. And comic books never have taken science fiction too seriously. They've always, or I shouldn't say always, but in a lot of cases, used it kind of too easily, just sort of thrown it in. Oh, we can travel to another planet. We can do this or that. Which, even though I'm a longtime science fiction reader of, reading sort of the more serious, if you will, science fiction that takes its science fiction seriously in novels and short stories, I've usually been able to be fine with the way science fiction is treated in comics. But when they take these superheroes and throw them in that, and when the central stuff becomes the science fiction, then I sort of want the science fiction to be taken as seriously as they take other things in comics, about continuity and character and all of that sort of stuff. So the semblance of reality seems to be lower to me as whenever they enter into the wilder ranges of science fiction than when they're being more Earth-based. So, that's where I am right now. Pretty down on the Avengers. Kind of thinking there might be some hope for Iron Man, but not too much hope. I think things will pick up more in the next episode of this overview of Marvel Now, as I look at the X-Men and I look at Thor. I think I'll have a lot more good things to say. So I hope you've borne with me and you'll come back for another one of these overly long rambles, if you enjoy them. If you don't, I'm happy to have just 2 viewers. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.